Hello, welcome to True Hoop special episode. Joined by Henry Abbott. How are you, sir?
Good. How are you?
I am excellent. Henry, at True, we often think about things that are not possible, or maybe they are possible. People haven't thought about them before. We push the envelope and we think about the league in different ways than how traditional NBA media covers the league. And you and David have had some interesting conversations lately about, if you got young talent, but you don't think you can win a title with it, is it better to trade that person now, get a huge haul back in return, plus a potential future MVP, and you work from there? Naturally, that got so many people upset. As I titled one of the episodes, "Should we trade Paolo Banchero?" It's classic. What I knew, I did that on purpose. I knew it would happen. 80% of people didn't even listen to the episode, and immediately in the comments, "You're an idiot!" It's just like going crazy.
How does this guy even have a job?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is just brilliant. I knew this was
and
I'm
like, oh, we found Paolo's, like, what's it called? His fake account, his
burner
or whatever. Like, yeah.
and obviously it's much more nuanced than that, right? Like it isn't that we're saying anybody's bad. It's just like, look, if your ultimate goal is the shiny gold ball and you don't think you're going to get there, well, now you're going to have a team with an expensive player who's very good, but you're not going to win. Hello, Matt Ishbia and the Phoenix Suns. This is where you sit right now.
I actually think that debate is one of the best we've ever had.
Yes, I agree.
What was the name of not the one with the Paolo headline, but the other, it was like doing
the unthinkable or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. That podcast, I listened back and I learned a lot from listening. I'm a better listener after the fact, maybe. But David said, I just felt like it was like, these are hard questions, and I don't think anybody is sure about the answer. But I do think that if I really genuinely believe that, like, if you make a sticky note with who you think is going to win the next 5 championships, if your team's not on that sticky note, like, everything's on the table as far as I'm concerned. Like,
yeah,
or you're deciding to make a plan that you don't think is going to work. Like, anyway, I think that's that makes those are hard choices. Yeah.
And I love that because we shouldn't be afraid of hard things. And that's ultimately what Henry's saying. It's like, yeah, fucking everything's hard, but like, don't be afraid of it. Like, be bold and be brave and make the decision. Now, the challenge, as we all know, is that everyone's number one focus is keeping their job. So of course I'm not going to gamble. No, why would I trade Paolo? I'm keeping him because that will make me keep my job. Versus trading him means there's a chance I can lose my job. But here's the reality: you're probably going to lose your job anyway. Right? That's the nature of being a GM.
And that's there's a part of that which is like, fans will not love you if you trade Paolo.
Correct.
It's a little bit on us, the media, right? Because we tend to take the GM's position, which is it's unthinkable. But we're misleading fans there, right? I feel like, no, like, probably we want to live in a world where if, Sam Presti makes a trade of Paul George for $1 million draft picks, like, everyone says, wow, how did you go Paul George? But it says like, wow, that's a big haul. He made it, and he did create a dynasty out of that day, right? So
he sure did.
It's a balance of thinking long term and short term, and most of the league errs on the side of short term, I guess.
And it's hard, but guess what? That's why you get paid a lot of money as GM to think about both.
Thank you. That's why I do get so much money.
and Sam Presti, that actually leads us here, right? Because Sam Presti and the Oklahoma City Thunder are in an interesting position right now, Henry. Yes, they have collected a freaking treasure trove of draft picks, but the NBA is a league where you're only allowed to have 15 players on a roster at a time with full contracts, and 3 two-way players, I believe. And most teams don't do the full 3 two-way and have 18 people, right? So they're not going to be able to draft everyone, put them on the roster, and pay everyone who's currently on their roster. It's just not going to be possible. Just math. Math ain't mathin', as the kids say. So consolidation has to happen at some point. And you had a very bold idea, which, as I keep thinking about it now, it's not. Yes, it is bold, but like, I actually think it is smart, and more GMs need to think about it this way. So I'd love for you to walk through what your thought process is.
Yeah. So we started in the mode of, I've been guilty of this too, where it's like, okay, well, between now and training camp in 2028, the Thunder have 15 draft picks. It's a little variable depending on exactly what happens with some things, but it's very likely they'll have 15 draft picks. They already have a roster full of young, talented players. like Shea is 26, and I think they only have 2 players who are meaningfully older than that.
Correct.
Like Kenrich Williams is 30, and I forget who the other
Alex Caruso.
Well, Alex Caruso is 30. And so they're gonna have every player they like out of this, unless they get devastatingly injured or something. So there's no flotsam and jetsam really. Like, I mean, we don't know much about some of these guys, but it's on most rosters, like if they had an expansion draft and they took the 9th best player, you'd be like, whatever. On this team, the 9th best player is literally Casey Wallace.
Yeah, it was very good.
Like, so they have, so the idea that they're going to make 15 roster spots or trade away 15 picks, like, it's just, how the hell do you do that? Like, there's just no way you can draft a player and have him play in Europe for a while, maybe, right? It's not very common anymore.
Right.
That good players would do that, but it could happen. And you could trade like a this year pick for a 5 years from now pick. But what they really need to do on this team is make their odds of winning a championship improve. And Shea's 26. So this might be the last year you could draft a rookie who might ever help him. He might be like kind of peaking when he's peaking. And this year happens to have, like, according to David Thorpe, a chef's kiss perfect player for the Thunder in Cooper Flagg. So you have we just had a trade that was the Jazz traded 3 for 1, 3 kind of so-so first round picks for the 2031 unprotected pick of the Suns, which is like a Cooper Flagg type pick.
Right.
So 3 for 1. We have a little bit of a market. There are a bunch of reasons why you'd pay more for this year's first pick, because A, it's Cooper Flagg, and B, it's sooner. But they have 15 picks, right? They could, for sure, they could get Cooper Flagg with some combination of assets that they already have.
Agreed.
My proposal is that rather than wait for the lottery to happen and see who gets that thing, I think it's just human nature that whoever gets the pick Cooper Flagg will just never, ever get rid of it. But right now, as we're talking, and the deadline's February 6th coming up, let's say you're Masai Ujiri running the crappy Raptors, and you might, if you're lucky, you'll end up with a 14% chance of the Cooper Flagg pick. 14%. 14% is not great, Jarod. Can we agree? That's
definitely
not
great.
So if Sam Presti calls and says, hey, I'll take your pick for Cason Wallace and 2 first-round picks, or they have so many young players.
Right.
I don't know exactly what the mix would be that would be right for the Raptors, but I think Masai would be, are you crazy? But he'd have to really think about it, because the much more likely thing than getting Cooper Flagg for Masai Ujiri is that they get like VJ Edgecombe.
Right. Which David's like, might not be great.
It might not be great. It might be great, but it's a very, very risky thing.
Yeah.
And so whereas Cason Wallace is,
good
I think,
now.
probably definitely way better than VJ Edgecombe, and he would come with 2 first-round picks. So I think that it might be an idea for Sam Presti to go around and purchase with like 3 for 1, 4 for 1 deals with like a player and some picks. The picks, the lottery odds, really purchase lottery odds.
Yeah.
And see if they can get up to 40%, 50%.
So obviously we're looking at teams like the Raptors, as you mentioned, the Jazz, the Pelicans, the Hornets, the Wizards, right? Those are the 5 teams that are pretty shitty right now that have like
probably call the Blazers.
Right? And the question
they're pretty
is,
good. Don't get me wrong, they're good. But
the question is, can you get 2 of those, right? Because that will increase your odds. You're probably not going to get the Jazz picks for reasons we talked about, which is the Jazz also have too many picks and they got to start consolidating themselves. So
yeah,
but you know who I'm looking? You mentioned Toronto. I'm looking at Charlotte and Washington. Those are the 2 teams, and I'm not, because I'm saying that they're not smart, but those are the 2 teams that I'm targeting. Right? Like, look at
yeah. That in Charlotte they have Brandon Miller who
just hurt his wrist and is out for the season, so they're already
perfect for Sam Presti's purposes.
Yes,
which puts them a little bit on a clock, right? Like they don't want to get their really good player in 5 years because they already have Brandon Miller. I'm not mentioning LaMelo Ball, but I probably should. But
because we have feelings about that,
but yeah, I think it's like that's a really interesting. Like they could use a Cason Wallace.
Sure could.
They could use it. Whatever. They could use more picks. They could use the things that Sam would be offering. Washington. I think that they do have smart leadership now, but I don't really understand who they're keeping and who they're not keeping.
Right.
Hard to say, but yeah, I think you're right. I don't think that I just think, and come on, Danny Ainge just isn't.
Right. No, Danny.
He doesn't want to be the guy who gave Sam Presti.
No. Danny's like, I am not talking to you, Sam Presti. Click. Nope, don't answer.
Also,
Decline, going to voicemail.
Utah's going to be like, great white player we're not getting? Yeah,
well,
probably.
There's also, I mean, listen, as I've joked on this podcast before, I would love for Cooper Flagg to end up in Utah for a variety of reasons.
Yeah.
And so, no, I doubt Danny does it. But I think, now is the time because you don't know if you're going to get. All you have is a 14% chance, which, again, is not great. It's maybe, it's really a maybe versus Cason Wallace is good now in this trajectory to show you he could be really good, right?
Yeah.
Like that's already now. And you already have Brandon Miller, as you mentioned. If you're the Hornets, if you're Washington, it's a little tougher, right? Who do you know it's good that you're keeping? You're maybe not sure, right? So.
Oh, Koulibaly, I guess. Right?
Koulibaly is very good, right? Like we loved him. So yeah, I think it is. Again, these are bold decisions, but I think it's hard for a lot of GMs to do that. And I also think, again, to your point, the media, like we do a better job of being honest with fans, right, about what a situation is. And it's like, no, it's not terrible that they did this. They're actually choosing to get players who can help them now, and they're also giving themselves a chance to get more players in the future because of the draft capital they got, right? Because in their current, they're not going to win the way they're set up right now. It's just, so why not make this move?
Well, and it's crazy. It would be crazy. It would be like a eye-popping crazy deal. But what is the conventional road for the Thunder to ditch 15 picks and players? Like, what is the normal way for that? Like, we talk about I think, does everybody call it a ladder or do we call it a ladder? But like, this, like the kind of pick lineup that the Thunder got from the Clippers, where you get like, they're picking this year and then a pick swap in the next year. There are a few of these around. These teams, so I would argue that getting a ladder of picks is the best thing that can happen for your team. It's amazing. It seems to work, make you good just about every time. But now's the time the Thunder have to get off the ladder. No one's ever done that before.
Yeah.
And that's tricky business. Like, because you can't, like, you have lost leverage. Like this, having to get rid of 15 players over the next 3 years is something the whole league knows about Sam now. Yeah. And like, he has had the upper hand in every call for so long, but now it's like, no, man, you have to make deal after deal after deal.
Yeah.
Like, he has to make so many deals. And so, these like, whatever it would be, Kenrich Williams, Cason Wallace, and Ousmane Dieng, and, 4 picks for 28%.
Then fine.
Of Cooper
then that's
Flagg
what it is.
Actually, I think pretty reasonable compared to the other options. The worst case scenario there is you trade, Cason Wallace, who you like a lot, for, they're going to end up with, in that scenario, 3 lottery picks in this year's draft. Maybe not Cooper Flagg, but 3 lottery picks. They still have them.
Exactly. Like, you have to pay them at some point and roster them, and
yeah. They could trade them if they don't want them. But those are valuable.
I think your point is correct, right? In that now we're going to see Clay Bennett and that ownership group's appetite for actually wanting to win, because this is the point. Okay, we know who our max guys are. It's Chet, it's J-Dub, and it's Shea, right? That's very clear. Okay. Well, now what about everybody else? Are you going to do what isn't the hard thing, right? That is necessary. And it's going to be hard, right? It's going to be giving up young guys who you've got like super friendly contracts and whatever to get a Cooper Flagg, let's say you do, and pay him whatever number 1 pick salary slot gets. And which means you might get into the tax because you're going to rookie. All that. You might
they're getting into the tax.
You're going to have to do that. Yeah. But they have shown that that's not what they wanted to do in the past.
Yeah.
So how do you sell that to your fans now? That we've told you look how much better we're going to be. If you keep doing this, we're going to punt the can down the road. And you also risk the chance of upsetting Shea and being like, I thought we were going to try to win. That's what you sold me on. Now we're not.
I mean, they're so good. Like, they're going to try to win, right? They're the best team in the league and one of the youngest teams in the league, right? Like, Shea is 26 and the old man, and they're literally the best team in the league. Like, it's beautiful. But there's this kind of, but what do you do with the 15 picks? And like, if you can bring in Cooper Flagg, like, it seems like maybe something you got to explore, right? Like,
100%.
They're just not gonna. Also, why didn't they get the Suns 2031 pick?
Yeah, that's a very valuable pick. I don't know why they didn't think about that.
It's a very valuable pick, and And Tim McMahon reported that they were in the mix for it, and they definitely could have been higher.
Easy.
Those picks weren't amazing. And that's interesting to me. I'm like, well, that's exactly the kind of thing that could make the Thunder better one day. 2031 pick might be your next Shea if you're right? But guess he had something else you want to do with his assets. Right?
Yeah.
Something better than maybe the best pick of 6 years from now. Like,
yeah,
that's interesting. I don't know the answer to is right now. I think you can't trade 2032 picks. Right? It's only 2031.
Yeah, 2031.
When does that? When do they release the 2032?
My
You know
guess
what I mean?
is the
When do those drop?
Summer, like after once free agency ends. My guess is the summer. I think,
or maybe draft day,
because that starts a new calendar year, right? So my guess is that a new calendar year has to begin for 2032 to be available. Is my guess.
I guess I'm saying, like, I'm thinking if it's draft day, then which is like trade-o-rama, then that opens up. Then this year's draft day opens up a whole new batch of picks that Sam might be trading forward for. If that makes sense,
for sure. Oh yeah, I mean,
right.
And listen, that stuff, by the way, the minutia of keeping all track of all that and listen, again, these guys get paid a shit ton of money. That's what you get paid to do and monitor this kind of thing. But I like you, I'm very curious to see. This is the promise, right? So it's almost like we didn't get to see the full promise of Sam Hinkie's plan in Philadelphia, right? But we should get the opportunity to see Sam Presti's plan in Oklahoma City, right? They are the best team in the league, all the picks. So now, are you going to actually do the thing, consolidate, and it doesn't have to be Cooper Flagg. They could also consolidate and get like Lauri Markkanen or whatever the hell, right? They can do a lot of things. They are the one team, as I said before, can get exactly what they want and what they need. No other team can do that. So
yeah, they will. I mean, they will consolidate. There's no chance. Like, actually, here's my really dumb idea. Travis, who has been a little bit like, Lauri doesn't look great. Looks like he's maybe a little beat up. Isn't feeling quite right. Looks like maybe he's in pain. So last year when the Thunder sort of went in, they got Gordon Hayward.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, Lauri Markkanen right now then is like exactly like halfway between Gordon Hayward and Cooper Flagg. Right?
Yep. There it is. There it is. There it is. There it is. Oh, man. But no, folks, look, we wanted to give you guys this little quick, brief mini pod just because we thought this is an interesting topic to discuss. Maybe we'll do more of these in the future because they're kind of fun. But this is how we're rethinking how teams need to look at things. We got a piece coming out sometime next week, I think, about how teams need to rethink about the NBA draft that David wrote, which is going to be really exciting. As David said about Matt Ishbia, and he's not alone in this. These owners have a fundamental misunderstanding of how our league works. and it's really, and some of you fans might as well, because you might think the same way the owner thinks, right? Just get me proven guy who maybe not, right? It'd be better to get you a second round. Speaking of that, really quick, not to spoil it. It's like Jalen Wells on the Grizzlies, a second round pick at that salary slot, who Henry is already outperforming his contract. These are the kinds of people you need to fill your team out with. And then when they get good and it's time to give them a lot of money, already have their extension of their replacement on the roster who can do the same thing, who was also an undrafted player or a second round pick or whatever, that you move up. This is the game now. But I don't know.
I'll tell you what else I've been thinking about is like there's tremendous value in non-max extensions.
Yes.
Like, I mean, Jalen Green's pretty good now, right? Like,
yes.
like, but that was a bold, when they signed him to the extension, I was like, this is a big mistake. But now it's like, oh, now they get 3 max players plus Jalen Green. That's pretty good.
Yep. That's the idea. Can you get your rookie on a non-max extension?
Get a really good, highly productive player who makes, like 14 to 30 million. Like that's how you win. Yeah.
Smart players, smart teams. We'll figure it out. All right, folks. Enjoy the weekend, and we will see you next week. Take care.